If I could make one argument for Hugh Neutron's inclusion in any video game, it's that he appeals to both boys, girls, and duck lovers.
Don't tell the others, but you're my favorite.
Kick it.
Ahoy, mateys, and welcome to This Week in Nickelodeon History. My name is Captain Eric, and it is a beautiful Sunday morning on July 17th. I am recording this the morning of release. Doesn't happen very often, but it's happening now. Might be a normal thing moving forward. I don't know. But in the past, This Week in Nickelodeon History for myself has been a playground or a sandbox where I can just be a little bit more down to earth, not be as much of an on-air personality. Or I don't know. There's a difference when I record I'm Ready. There's like an energy level that comes with it that I would associate with hosting a radio show, because I've done that before in my past. Little fun fact there for you, for Captain Eric fans. And so when I come to This Week in Nickelodeon History, it was just meant to be a, hey, actually tone it down a little bit. Enjoy making a podcast. Try to be a little bit more looser, not edit every single mistake. And there's some weeks I forget about that. But given that I'm here, I'm relaxed, and I'm ready to celebrate some Nickelodeon anniversaries that took place in between the times of July 17th to July 23rd. And I don't know about you or any other 90s babies out there, but when I see the number 23, it's just ingrained in my head to immediately think about Michael Jordan. But fairly close to 23, we're actually celebrating our first show. Had its debut 24 years ago on July 19th, 1998. The Nickelodeon show Oh Yeah, Cartoons. Now, in the pantheon of 90s Nicktoons, it's very easy to overlook Oh Yeah, Cartoons. And why is that? If you don't know Oh Yeah, Cartoons, it's because it is a collection of shorts, over 102 shorts, aired in between 34 episodes of 3 seasons of Oh Yeah, Cartoons. The show was created by Fred Seibert, and out of the 102 segments that aired throughout Oh Yeah, Cartoons, 3 brand new Nicktoons would be born. The Fairly Oddparents, Chalk Zone, and My Life as a Teenage Robot. Which, Chalk Zone, by the way, the very first segment to air a part of Oh Yeah, Cartoons. I think they knew out of the gate that was going to be a popular one. That was a smart one to start out with. But Rob Renzetti, the creator of My Life as a Teenage Robot, had a multitude of shorts throughout Oh Yeah, Cartoons run, even like 2 or 3, even in the first season. But one name you may be shocked by if you scroll through the first season here to see the creators, Seth Macfarlane, the eventual creator of Family Guy, American Dad. Zoomates was a short that he had on the first season of Oh Yeah, Cartoons. For those that don't know, Seth Macfarlane was actually a big help over at Hanna-Barbera over throughout the 90s, working on Johnny Bravo alongside Butch Hartman. And it was through that door that they eventually would help, produce some shorts for Oh Yeah, Cartoons. In a similar way, Seth would go on to create a few more shorts for What a Cartoon over on Cartoon Network. One of those shorts being Larry and Steve, which if you've never seen, I implore you to YouTube, because very, very early on of that short, you will see some of the early inspirations of Family Guy. But that's what's really nice about these shorts, is because it's almost like a workshop. You get to see what works, what doesn't, and then by the time you get offered the series, hey, do you want to make this as an actual series? You can tweak anything you really want from those shorts. For example, in the Fairly Oddparents shorts, Mom and Dad are never seen. they're heard of. You see their legs, but you never see the top half of them. You don't know what they look like, literally until the Fairly Oddparents was brought to series. The Chalk Zone series did a little bit of a time jump with an older Rudy Tabuti, but then using that as a framing device to re-air those shorts, since it had been so long at that point. Chalk Zone didn't air until 2002, 4 years after that initial short aired, a part of that first episode. But I'm thankful for cartoon compilation shows like Oh Yeah Cartoons, like What a Cartoon, any of the opportunities where creators around the world get to flex their creativity in their own way to show what they have. And it's that classic pitch process. Even more so because it goes beyond just the pitch. You actually get to see all of the characters interact with how the creator intended. And hey, if your creation resonates with people enough, they will let the network know, we want to see more of this. We want to see more of this world, more of these characters, more of this story, and we'll take your short and make it a series. That is an exciting endeavor, and I'd love to see more, Oh Yeah Cartoon like projects being made. But with the internet and YouTube, you have this happening every day. You have creators around the world showing you their creativity in their own way without restrictions and uploading it to Newgrounds and YouTube, other forms of streaming services. It's happening everywhere. So for as much as I love the idea of Nickelodeon packaging this for you, man, do you already have access to that on your own? And in a more exciting way, where you can interact with those creators instantaneously. You can let them know what you think or what you don't like or like about their short, and they can interact with you back. I do think Nickelodeon still could have a foothold in this realm in some way by using the internet, reaching out to online creators, to internet creators. Hey, do you want to create a short for our YouTube channel, for this Oh Yeah Cartoons YouTube channel, and build it up that way? Then you can kind of gauge what shows people like based off of how they perform on YouTube or Newgrounds. Almost a new age version of Oh Yeah Cartoons, even though we've been doing this the entire time, but then just building that bridge closer to creators where they have the ability to then come on and help produce a full series. There's something exciting about that. And since Nickelodeon has always been creator-based, I don't know, there's something exciting. But yeah, if you have never watched Oh Yeah Cartoons, it's not really hard to recommend you not to, because you're bound to find something you like. With the amount of shorts out there, 102 segments, you are bound to find a short or a new show or a new character that you fall in love with. So just watch it. Just watch it. 9 times out of 10, Oh Yeah Cartoons is well worth a watch. 22 years ago, on July 23rd, 2000, the Brothers Garcia premiered on Nickelodeon, created by Jeff Valdez, Mike and Gibby Savalos. The show ran for 4 seasons, 52 episodes, and a TV movie. Now, here's what's crazy. I remember watching a ton of the Brothers Garcia, but I don't remember specifics. And I'm sorry about that. Jeff, if you're out there and you're somehow listening to this, I'm sorry. But here's the silver lining of that. Even though I don't remember the specifics, if you asked me what my opinion of the Brothers Garcia is, it's nothing but positive. I would say that as a kid watching this, as a young teen watching this, when it was on, it wasn't a show that I would go out of my way to watch, although the TV movie I remember being excited for. That one I was genuinely excited for and watched when it was airing live. But as far as the show is concerned, definitely wasn't a show that, I would write in the TV guide, I got to watch a new episode of Brothers Garcia. But it certainly wasn't a show that I would turn the channel on if it came on. I would let it play. I would enjoy the characters. The brothers certainly had my attention. And for those that don't know, The show actually has a sequel series titled The Garcias, which just premiered this year, like within the last few months, on April 14th, 2022, premiered on HBO Max. Hashtag not sponsored. But yeah, if you're a fan of the Brothers Garcia, 6 of the original cast members of the Brothers Garcia are back for the sequel series. So I don't know if I'm going to just hop right into the Garcias without double checking with the brothers of the original. I think I'm going to have to rewatch that, but that's pretty exciting to know that that the Brothers Garcia was just one of those shows that got swept up in this typhoon of, hey, let's go back to this sitcom and see how they're doing 20 years later. And all of them are successful. All of them have been great thus far. Makes you question whether or not these shows should have left in the first place. And then you immediately have to answer yes. It's called, hey, we're done with this for right now. It's okay to put it away. And it's also okay to go back to a book you've read 20 years later to reread it, even if it's in a new perspective. But yeah, shout out to the Brothers Garcia. Shout out to Jeff Valdez for the return of the Garcias. And yeah, if you were a fan of the Brothers Garcia, if you have any fond memories, as usual, if you were watching this on YouTube, you should certainly let me know. And if you're not watching this on YouTube, you should stop listening to this podcast and wait like a week and a half for the YouTube version to show up. And then you should go back on there and let me know what you think. 19 years ago, on July 19th, 2003, the Rocket Power TV movie Reggie's Big Beach Break premiered on Nickelodeon. Rocket Power, created by Arlene Klasky and Gabar Chupo, originally premiered on August 16th, 1999, and had a decent amount of TV movies, although Reggie's Big Beach Break, among the ones that I know of, kind of fits in the middle range of what is a good Rocket Power TV movie. I don't like that it really doesn't leave the sanctity of Ocean Shores. In fact, the whole plot is about essentially spring break coming to Ocean Shores and Reggie getting involved with the promotion, basically becoming a MTV on-air personality. Not with MTV, but just think of it in that regard. If you remember when MTV used to have those spring break specials and they would be live somewhere cool and hot and tropical, and it's essentially that idea coming to Ocean Shores, but with a more skateboardy edge to it, because we also have an appearance by skateboarder Andy McDonald in this episode, and that's honestly one of my biggest memories when it comes to this. But also, I do think, if I remember correctly, this is one of those episodes in which I feel like Raymundo is a little bit too harsh on Otto, although Otto in all regards absolutely deserves being punished for his actions. But then you have these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities always put in front of him to show off his abilities and his skills, and then in those same moments, he's always finding himself in trouble with his dad, and it just happens a lot in the show. And here we are in season 4, and here we are at this moment again of Otto being unable to compete because of something. But I enjoy Rocket Power as a whole. Anytime I've gone back and watched an episode or two, it clicks in that same way as I remember as a kid enjoying it, being into extreme sports. And then so you would think, well, almost 20 years later, is it having that same effect even, when you're not watching as many extreme sports? Are you still into these characters and the lingo they're using? The answer is yeah. I'm still into it. Still cool. I don't like being a shoe. Like, to this day, if I go to the beach, I have to make sure to not wear socks and shoes. I do not want to look like a shoebie anywhere I go. That show has scared me from the fear of like the local kids and teenagers making fun of the non-local guy going to the beach. I don't know why. I'm not saying it's an actual fear, but I will be honest and say that, yeah, I have avoided wearing socks and shoes like that near the beach, or even socks and sandals. Just socks anywhere near the beach just doesn't belong. Leave them home. Leave them in the car. Don't bring them with you. But yeah, that's the effect of Rocket Power. But from one Rocket Power to another, and I had these things out of order, so I should have gone with this one first. But either way, that transition would have worked, because 20 years ago, on July 20th, 2002, we had the premiere of The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. Created by John A. Davis, the show ran for 3 seasons, 61 episodes, is a spin-off of a theatrical film, Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, which premiered on December 21st, 2001, and is among the first 3 animated films to be nominated by the Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature. The other contenders, Shrek and Monsters, Inc. And of course, Shrek took that award. If I understand correctly, Shrek was like the reason for that award's existence in the first place. So it's one of those you should be happy you were nominated deals. But yeah, The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, one of the best Nicktoons of all time. And honestly, I stuttered there because what I should have said is it's one of the best Nickelodeon shows of all time. Animated, live action, regardless. It has that Nickelodeon level of energy. It's a sublime level of energy that I don't know if it's just something that I'm imagining, but there's just certain shows that give off a level of energy that I can only associate with Nickelodeon. That's a terrible... I just had a comparison that was absolutely terrible. I'm not even going to mention it here. And I know you're saying, well, you brought it up, now you got to say something, and I'm not. But yeah, there's something that comes alongside being on Nickelodeon and seeing that logo, and maybe it's just me, but there's something about that energy that comes alongside of it, that Jimmy Neutron, from the design, from the show's just world it created, it exudes that energy. And I think, and call me crazy, but I think it's because of that here we are 20 years later and people are still begging for Jimmy Neutron content just as strongly as they were in 2006 when this show was still at the height of its popularity, and it just left. It was gone. It didn't get like a big finale send-off. Fairly Oddparents ended at the same time and then got to come back with Fairly Odd Baby, and here was Jimmy Neutron just left in the dust. Hey, thanks for the time. Thanks for giving us some of the best TV movies of all time, some of the best exciting moments of characterization that were happening season to season that were not happening on almost any other Nicktoon. Growth, actual growth of the characters in a, fun animated style that, like, in ways it looked cheap, but at the same time it had its own unique flair that made it look beautiful. In a way that even when they tried to replicate it with Planet Sheen a few years later, I don't know, there was just something off about it. The beauty was kind of not there 100%, but there's just something about Jimmy Neutron that just brings nothing but good and positive feelings for me. And I know I'm not the only one in that regard. Like I said, the love to this day is strong, to the point that it even has been affected with the Simpsons effect of where the protagonist's father becomes more popular, as popular, or if not more popular than the protagonist themselves. This happens when a show is on too long, but then the thing with Jimmy Neutron is that due to the internet and Jimmy really never leaving, quote unquote, in some regard, it's finally happened where in The Simpsons, for the first few years, Bart Simpson was the most marketable character for that show. He was the most popular. It was all about Bart. And then at some point, all of those fans grew up and Homer took over. And then all of a sudden, it was about Homer. It wasn't about Bart as much. And if you think of other shows like South Park, and you think of a character like Randy, here's another show where after a few years, all of a sudden, the kid in the cartoon is not as popular, but then the dad of the kid gets more attention, more of that spotlight, gets to explore a little bit more how much of a goof they are, and to explore those storyline possibilities. And then I look at The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, and here we are 20 years later, and Jimmy's father, Hugh Neutron, is a character coming up in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawler. If you're listening to this at some point in the future, he's already out. But the fact that Hugh Neutron got into that game before Jimmy is hilarious, and it's unforgettable. It's hard to deny how, in the same regard, we have found this love for Hugh as we did when we grew up and we found love for Homer, and then when we grew up and we found love for Randy, and Hugh is just getting that same level of love, and it's just completely sublime. And I love it. I love every second of it. Shout out to Mark DiCarlo, voice actor behind Hugh Neutron, who has, over the last few years, has embraced the character, has embraced the fan base, has embraced all of the goofiness surrounding Hugh, the Hugh-universe, and everything that's around it, all of the different various characters that show up. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. Captain Eric is somewhere in that Hugh-universe, not a very loud one, but he's there. And I just want to give a shout out to all of those involved, including one Botho the Bear. Big shout out to you over there in Hollywood. I would love a call sometime. But yeah, The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, if you have never seen this show, it's one of those Nickelodeon shows. It's top 5, probably top 3, that I would just say it is 100% worth a watch. It's beyond worth a watch. It's like a guaranteed watch. If you're going to call yourself a fan of Nickelodeon, watch yourself the Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. There's no way you could watch the 3 seasons of that show. I know I just said this about Oh Yeah Cartoons, so there's no way you wouldn't fall in love with the character. In that same regard, there's no way that you wouldn't be able to find at least 5 episodes that are just, oh man, I want to rewatch these all the time. Or there's no way that you wouldn't find a character and watch their growth from season 1 to season 3 and see that trajectory and be excited as to what comes next, only to find out that the show stopped. But as far as my favorites of Jimmy Neutron, a couple of episodes ago we talked about my top 5 favorite Jimmy Neutron specials, and I thought about going back into Neutron today for top 5 episodes, but we're gonna leave Jimmy Neutron away today for the top 5 because there's just gonna be more opportunities to talk about Jimmy throughout the year. But please, if you are finding this on YouTube, watching this on YouTube, there's a way for you to comment. I'd love to know what your favorite Jimmy Neutron episode is. What is your above all else top episode of Jimmy Neutron? And while we're on the subject, I really think we need an official release of some of the music from The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. There's this piece of music in this one episode that was stuck in my head for like 3 days. And now that I'm going to bring it up again, it's probably going to happen. But season 3, episode 4, or technically 5 because the Attack of the Twonkies is a 2-parter, Fundemonium features a musical sequence showing off Jimmy making toys for his father, and then his father bringing the toys into the toy factory to show them off. And there's this piece of music that very much sounds like Hey Ya by Outkast, but it's not. And I just want to listen to it without any of the show's extra sound effects and whatnot. Now, I know Enjoy the Tune Records has released a few Nickelodeon soundtracks over the last few years. Hey Arnold, Ren and Stimpy. But hopefully if we can get to Jimmy Neutron, we can definitely get the Fundemonium track on there. I would be very grateful. And going from Jimmy Neutron over to the Fairly Oddparents, 18 years ago, on July 23rd, 2004, we had the premiere of what most people will call the greatest Fairly Oddparents movie ever. And it really is hard to disagree. Now, just a few episodes ago, I made the claim that I actually prefer Abracatastrophe and consider it the most theatrical-like Fairly Oddparents movie. But even if that was released in theaters, it would be hard to deny that this is not the greatest Fairly Oddparents TV movie meant for television, and that is Channel Chasers. Channel Chasers, look, for as much as I put it up there with Abracatastrophe, it's like if you walked up to me and you wanted to have a discussion on the better comedian, George Carlin or Richard Pryor, and it's one of those questions that the answer, there's no wrong answer. Those two gentlemen are so high and above all other comedians and have two somewhat different styles that, at the end of the day, if you prefer one or the other, you just really can't be wrong because they're just that good. So when it comes, in my world, to Abracatastrophe and Channel Chasers, even though I'm always kind of putting down Channel Chasers, it's not to disregard my love for this episode. It's only to push up my love for Abracatastrophe, which I feel like a lot of Fairly Oddparents fans have just forgotten about. Like, that movie came, and then Channel Chasers showed up and was just like, it's like that meme of the guy with his girlfriend and the other girl's walking by and he looks behind it and he's whistling. He's like, ooh, it's like that. But, so yeah, anytime I'm talking about, my preference of a Abracatastrophe as a movie over Channel Chasers, I don't want it to ever seem like I'm just putting this down, because in all regard, I absolutely love Channel Chasers. It is one of my favorite Fairly Oddparents movies of all time. It's one of my favorite Fairly Oddparents stories of all time. And, if you're a young kid watching cartoons, there's never not a point in your life that you would think about, hey, what would I be like in that show? If you're 5 or 6, 7, you're a young kid and you're watching those preschool shows, or even the ones that include you a part of the story, like Blue's Clues, like they talk to the audience, which is a show that gets parodied in Channel Chasers, because the main event here of Channel Chasers is the parodies. The parodies going from channel to channel, show to show, and seeing our characters in as many different art styles and lampooning as many different other TV shows as they can. It's a wild ride. The Fairly Oddparents, originally created by Butch Hartman, who, as I mentioned, got his start with this show through Oh Yeah Cartoons. So seeing this trajectory, going from these shorts of the Fairly Oddparents dealing with Vicky to then this TV movie dealing with Vicky, hopefully not taking over the world, it's quite a leap. And I'm glad it happened. I mean, the Fairly Oddparents, another show that just exudes Nickelodeon energy, and honestly, it's from that idea of a kid being able to wish anything. That right there, that just kind of captures a bit of that. But if you have never seen Channel Chasers, just watch it. We're getting a lot of like good, high quality recommendations here. It's an easy episode for me to say, watch this. But as far as this next one, I unfortunately don't have too many memories of watching this show other than one episode. But 16 years ago, on July 23rd, 2006, we had the final episode of Romeo, created by Fracaswell Hyman, Thomas W. Lynch, and Percy Miller, also known as Master P, starring his son, Little Romeo, who was a musician in his own right. This show lasted 3 seasons of 53 episodes. Now, as I mentioned, don't really have many memories of this show, but I do have one memory in which it brought up a classic argument, a schoolyard argument that I had not heard about in years. And then this show just brought it up, and it was just like this PTSD of the schoolyard. But it was the argument over which order of operations you do with cereal and milk. Are you somebody who puts in cereal into the bowl first and then pours milk over it? Or are you someone who pours milk into the bowl first and then pours cereal on top of that? It's a distinct argument I had at least witnessed on the schoolyard between kids. There's very few people definitely that you'll find that agree with pouring the milk in first is the right way. But they have a strong stance on that order, and they'll defend it. So it was crazy to see it happen in this episode. I don't even know how long it is, but I just remember it happening and just like thinking, whoa, this happened a long time ago. Why? This show is referencing this. Not that figured they were referencing my own life, but it was just crazy to see that argument play out on television like that. I like Romeo. He seems like a cool guy. Master P seemed like a really cool dad at the time too. He got his kid a show on Nickelodeon. I wish my dad was able to do that. Where's my TV show, Dad? But I mean, that could have been a possibility if my dad was a rapper, an entrepreneur, a record executive, an actor. He's the founder of No Limit Records, so unfortunately my dad missed the boat on that one. Couldn't have created No Limit Records. But yeah, anyway, congratulations, Master P. Like, big fan over here. And also to Romeo. Like, 3 seasons of a show, that's something to be proud of. And, certainly, I may not have grown up as like a fan of the show. I have run into a lot of people around my age who have watched Romeo and do remember it and bring it up if they see like a Nickelodeon shirt. It might be like a part of some of their shows they've brought up. I've at least heard Romeo a few times. 15 years ago, on July 20th, 2007, the TV movie The Last Day of Summer premiered on Nickelodeon. The movie was directed by Blair True and written by Kent Pierce. 14 years ago, on July 19th, 2008, we had the finale of Avatar The Last Airbender, Sozin's Comet. The TV movie, which is actually 4 separate episodes of Avatar The Last Airbender, aired as a 2-hour event and drew 5.6 million viewers, a 195% increase compared to what had aired for Avatar a year prior during that time period. I'm guessing during the ending of season 2. But 5.6 million viewers, which, by the way, there was an entire week of premieres of Avatar The Last Airbender leading up to the finale, rounding out the end of season 3. From the beginning of that run with the Western Air Temple all the way to Sozin's Comet, 19 million viewers tuned into Nickelodeon that week throughout to check out the final Last Airbender episodes. That is just an insane number and goes on to show you just how massive this show was in its time. And I don't need to really even tell you that, because you can just see, even in 2022, how big the Last Airbender franchise has grown and is still growing, because we have yet to even see the biggest triumph out of this series, which is the inevitable animated movies to come out from Avatar Studios. This show, Avatar The Last Airbender, is such a big Nicktoon that it eventually got bigger than Nickelodeon itself. If you think about that for a second, they had to create their own animated studio separate from Nickelodeon to just specifically work on Avatar The Last Airbender content, or just Avatar stuff, this world, not necessarily stuff with Aang. That is a level of financial investment that goes to show you that Paramount knows exactly what they have in their hands, they're respecting it, and they know that, hey, these creators, everything they've touched has become super popular, even maybe not in its initial airing with something like The Legend of Korra, but look how much it's grown since its initial release through re-airings on Netflix and being able to have it on Paramount Plus. So, yeah, this is a big franchise here. And to just bring the scope back all the way down to Sozin's Comet, this moment is your lead up. I mean, when you started this whole series, you gave the audience a promise that Aang as the Avatar was going to have to come face to face with Fire Lord Ozai at some point in time, with the point of killing him, the point of taking him away so that this war could be over. And throughout the entire series, you're learning more and more about Aang and his pacifism in a way, and his disregard for killing. I don't want to even say pacifism. He doesn't really like being violent. He doesn't mind, obviously, having to use force to stop somebody who is truly evil, but he certainly doesn't want to kill somebody. And throughout the entire show, it's leading up to this moment that is not obvious as to how he's going to handle it, but it's just one of the most beautiful finales I've ever watched. I was so happy that I became a fan throughout the second season of the show. I watched during the first season, but I wouldn't necessarily say I was invested. But it wasn't until season 2 that I truly became like, I'm invested in this show and I need to watch episode to episode. But I among everything I've talked about thus far, and if you've noticed, we've talked about Channel Chasers, the Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, Oh Yeah Cartoons. These are all things that I've told you today to just go out and watch on a whim without any other, explanation or recommendation. This is among one of them, but if you have not experienced Avatar: The Last Airbender, that's where I will say you should just watch that show. You should just watch Avatar. It really does not take that much to get through. It's 3 seasons, 61 episodes. It's on Netflix. It's on Paramount Plus. It's on Amazon Prime. There's many ways to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, and you should experience that story and show for yourself. Don't just watch it in chunks on YouTube through different personalities. You should view it for yourself because Sozin's Comet is an experience to behold. Watching it on its own without any other context or that buildup, I think you're just missing out on an emotional beat that you can only achieve if you've watched everything. So go back, give that a watch, and if you have fond memories of watching that finale, definitely on YouTube, let me know what you think in the comments below. 10 years ago, on July 21st, 2012, we had the premiere of You Gotta See This, a variety show of sorts, which included a bunch of crazy clips from the internet, pranks, and behind-the-scenes bloopers from a bunch of your favorite Nickelodeon shows like Big Time Rush, One Direction, iCarly, How to Rock, and presented by Noah Crawford and Chris O'Neill. The show ran for 1 season of 20 episodes. 8 years ago, on July 17th, 2014, we had the finale of Sam and Cat. Baked out of the Schneider Bakery, the show ran for 1 season of 35 episodes. It is a sequel/spin-off of both iCarly and Victorious, taking 2 of the side characters, Sam Puckett and Cat Valentine, and putting them together under one roof to see what happens. Oh, conflicting personalities. I wonder what will come of it. Well, unfortunately, a lot of hurt feelings behind the scenes. Unfortunately, a lot of inappropriate harassment on the side of Schneider, and of course the rise in popularity of Ariana Grande not really mixing well for the future of Sam and Cat. It seemed like a weird endeavor. I mean, at first, sure, a spinoff of 2 characters from 2 separate shows. I'm excited, but it just felt off and wrong, and it felt like Nickelodeon was grasping onto this world they created when both shows were done. And there was no need to grasp onto the world. You just expand on it. Do what you've done before. Make another show that takes place in the same world as Drake and Josh and iCarly and Victorious. Then you can feature these characters showing up and have those moments that are always nice and the crowd goes nuts. But I don't know. This one, there was just something from the beginning that felt off. And as things were just mounting behind the scenes as part of problems, it kind of became obvious that things weren't going to be continuing with Sam and Cat. If you're a fan of the show, I'm sure you're glad it exists, but I wish they would have left iCarly and Victorious behind. I don't think there was a need for these 2 characters to be thrown in with one another, and the obvious rise of Ariana Grande. I know it happened almost after the show premiered, so it was probably hard for them when they were developing the show to know, but she had an undeniable talent that was just going to supersede Nickelodeon. And I'm not saying the same of not saying the same of Jeanette McCurdy, because she too as well had an undeniable talent that was above and beyond Nickelodeon, although it would not be within the acting space. But it's hard for me to watch episodes of Sam and Cat knowing things behind the scenes, knowing how things ended, and just overall my feelings that the 2 characters really just, I don't know, they work good in a crossover, but for an entire show, I don't know. I like Sam as a secondary. I like Cat as a secondary. For them in the Drake and Josh type roles, I don't know. It doesn't work for me. If it worked for you, totally fine. I'm glad it exists for you, but I usually will skip Sam and Cat. But on the same day as their finale 8 years ago, we had the premiere of Kids' Choice Sports, a Kids' Choice Awards show devoted entirely to sports, hosted by Michael Strahan, Ran for a few years up until 2019, which up to this point has been the last Kids' Choice Sports, and unfortunately it doesn't seem to be making its way back. Which I gotta say, on one hand, I like the idea. Another chance to put on a live show, more chances for Slime, and an opportunity to focus more on the athletes of the sports world instead of just giving them one or two categories a part of the Kids' Choice Awards. But I don't know. This isn't anything that at my age, I don't even watch the ESPYs. So even a more adult-oriented sports award show, I'm not really going to tune into. Not that I'm not into sports, but, hey, I love movies. I rarely tune into the Academy Awards. It's just, I don't know, award shows I've grown out of entirely as a person. But I'm glad this existed for the years it did, because there's a lot of great athletes out there that should be recognized for the work they do on the field, on the track, off the field, off the track, as human beings, to be great role models for kids. I like this idea, and who's going to deny that Michael Strahan is not a wonderful personality that could host a show like that? I'm glad he did. Shout out to Michael Strahan. 4 years ago, on July 20th, 2018, we had the premiere of Nickelodeon's second series devoted to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Developed by Andy Suriano and Ant Ward, the show ran for 2 seasons of 39 episodes. I fell in love with the 2012 TMNT. There was a lot to love with the character progression of that show, the storylines, the way that they mixed in the classic 80s series with the comics, and then even brought in elements from other aspects of TMNT. I loved it. It was a great ride. When I saw the designs for Rise, I was immediately thrown away, not even because of the idea of Wrath being like a big turtle. I'm not against that. But just going from these beautiful 3D models and the designs of that show to then the design of this, it was night and day, and I understand why Nickelodeon was doing that. Hey, you're developing a show right after this other one, and you're using these same characters. Change up the art style. Who cares? It's TMNT. There's always going to be a new show to do with these 4 characters and their world, so why not experiment? An experiment they did, and the show certainly has its fans. On Netflix, on August 5th, 2022, a movie, Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie, is going to air. And from the initial trailer, I gotta say, it seems like it's an adventure worth checking out. I may have not seen the show, but I got to imagine, with the idea they're dropping this on Netflix, that the movie will be an easy access into that world, because I think I want to watch it. I might watch it right when it drops. Gonna be honest with you guys, even though I have not seen a lick of the show. But if you think it's worth getting into, certainly let me know. I'll be checking out the movie regardless, but if you think the show is actually worth dropping into, let me know. 2 years ago, on July 17th, 2020, the Nickelodeon special Cake My Day premiered, hosted by legendary television personality and chef Rachel Ray, alongside culinary expert Amira Kasem from Top Elf. The special was designed using the flower shop in New York to find a deserving kid and to give them the opportunity to bake the cake of their dreams. As far as I know, this only aired once on Nickelodeon. And just last year, on July 21st, 2021, we had the finale of Nella the Princess Knight over on Nickelodeon, although on its Nick Jr. lineup in the mornings. The show was created by Christine Ritchie, Ph.D., and ran for 2 seasons of 68 episodes. Now, before I run out of here, off to work, because right after I post this, I'm immediately going to work, I got to give you my top 5 of the week. Captain Eric's top 5 of the week. And this top 5 is of my top 5 Avatar episodes. Thought this was special since we were talking about Sozin's Comet. We were talking about the finale. I'd give you my top 5 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Number 5, airing a part of Season 3, The Ember Island Players. Now, this is the episode that airs right before Sozin's Comet. And not to spoil it in any way, it's an episode that very beautifully recaps the entirety of Avatar: The Last Airbender in a way where the characters are basically watching a puppet play of what has happened since episode 1. And it's just a beautiful, calming before the storm episode to have before this just massive finale, all this emotions. I love that ability to just take a breath, take a moment, appreciate what has happened before. Of course, in the episode, they're still obviously aware as what is happening now and what is going to be happening, but there's this calming right before the storm that is about to happen, right before this comet. And because of that, it's just emotionally, it's one of my favorite episodes going back to that time I first watched it, because I don't think any other episode could get you more pumped up for that finale than this one. Number 4, episode 1 of the series, The Boy in the Iceberg, the one that started it all. And, I may not have become a fan immediately after watching this episode, but that still doesn't mean that on its own, as a premiere, as a start of a show, it is not an unforgettable episode. Everything that happens in it, the meeting of Aang, Zuko, everything. It's just a perfect start to this story, and I've gone back and watched it more than a few times, and it holds up. Number 3 here is actually a two-parter, and it's The Library and the Desert, airing a part of Season 2. Now, this was, I believe it was promoted as kind of a TV movie of sorts. Not necessarily, but Nickelodeon definitely aired these two at the same time as like a big event. And that was the event in which I became a fan. I had watched Avatar up to that point, maybe not every episode on its premiere, but I had mostly gotten the idea and caught up. Like, okay, he's still learning the elements, and I didn't really have every single detail, but this was the episode that I hopped onto that train, and I was glad to be along for the ride, and that's where I started really watching the old episodes, buying the DVDs, learning every little bit of the show that I could, and it all started with The Library in the Desert. There was just something about that story. I've always loved the idea of in the desert coming across a building that just over centuries or time may have been covered by sand, and then it's just uncovered, and it's just in this moment of time. I like that idea. It all may have stemmed from this episode of that love. I don't know if I had that beforehand, but this episode definitely gave me those thoughts. Number 2 might be a surprising one for some, because after all this talk, you would think, wait a minute, this is your number 2, Sozin's Comet. The finale of the show, for as beautiful as it is actually not my favorite episode of the show. I have one that I prefer. But yeah, Sozin's Comet, the finale, we just got done talking about it. One of the most beautiful finales in television history, certainly in the animated sense. That's undeniable. If you want to start arguing when live action shows are brought in, sure. But I'm still going to stand by this as an excellent finale. But my number one favorite Avatar: The Last Airbender episode of all time is actually another two-parter. I know, cheating here a little bit, but it is part of Season 3, and it is The Boiling Rock, Part 1 and Part 2, which aired on July 16th, 2008. The Boiling Rock is a story about Sokka finding out that his father is locked up in one of the worst Fire Nation prisons out there. Like, the worst one you could imagine. And he wants to rescue him. And up to this point, Zuko, who is on Team Avatar but is still working his way into earning everybody's trust, this is the episode in which he earns Sokka's undeniable trust, in which he assists Sokka into not only breaking into this prison, but helping to break his father out. But not only that, we meet up again with Suki, who is also among those locked up in this prison. I love a good prison break story. Yes, I'm a fan of the show Prison Break because of that. But I love the intricacies of the break-in, the breakout, the timing of everything, and the way this episode was laid out, the structure of it. It's like it was designed for me to fall in love with it. So it's always been my favorite episode. I owned it on iTunes. I had it like on an iPod video, like the little screen one, and I would watch that in school once it came out on there, and was just like, I was able to watch that. Like, I'm watching this episode on this little screen, falling in love with it just as much as I did the first time I watched it. Out of all of the episodes that aired on that week, that each episode obviously had more viewers, but I wish more people went back and watched The Boiling Rock. I bring it up to any Avatar fans, and people are like, oh, you like that episode, really? And I'm like, yeah, there's something special about not only the prison break, but then the formation of the trust between Sokka and Zuko. I loved that, because I feel like once Sokka earned that trust, I mean, obviously Aang's is the most important, but there was something special about that moment. I liked that, but 50 minutes in, and that is everything Captain Eric has on this Sunday morning for this week in Nickelodeon history. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for following along. Thank you for listening week after week. You can reach Captain Eric at NickelodeonHistory@gmail.com. If you have any Nickelodeon questions, comments, anything you want me to read out on the air, you can send me your emails there. You can also follow me on Twitter at I'm Ready Podcast and on Instagram at SpongeBob Podcast. Please check out my other podcast, I'm Ready, a SpongePod Squarecast, dropping mostly every Wednesday, although the last few weeks have been a little rough with some personal struggles, but mostly every Wednesday. It does drop every single week. There's not a week I don't forget. So if you are a fan of that show, follow it on your podcast platform of choice, just like this one, and just make sure to watch out for those drops. But also, please remember to subscribe to the Captain Eric YouTube channel. If you're listening to this here, definitely hit that subscribe button. But also, if you feel inclined to, hit that bell so you can be notified anytime the captain comes into port to put something out. You can also purchase new and updated merch at the Redbubble link, either in the podcast description or in the link from any of my socials. Anything that comes in through my projects goes directly back into my projects, and it is always undeniably appreciated. As always, folks, please stay safe out there, be kind to one another, and come aboard again next week to This Week in Nickelodeon History.
On the Lord Hut, here we hut, Nick. On the Lord Hut, here we hut, Nick, Nick. On the Ricky Ticky Low, while living #1 Nickelodeon.